Guys, welcome back. It is Racer X, and today I want to talk about the Scatpack. Obviously, behind me, I have the 2019 Challenger Scatpack, Mrs. X's car, and we've owned the car now for about a year and a half or so, and I've actually learned quite a bit about this thing through ownership and just kind of dealing with some friends and just sort of, you learn about these things. So I want to share my knowledge with you, kind of give you the good and the bad about this car, things you should know about the Scatpack before you buy one. So it should be a fun one. Also, guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure you slap the subscribe button down here in the corner, hit the like, and we are off. We got the 1,000 horsepower helmet. God. Now, I realize that I have a lot of Scatpack owners out there that actually follow my channel already, but also there are a lot of folks out there that just want to know more about this. Maybe RT owners or even V6 owners, possibly even some Hellcat guys that want to step down. And there's also a lot of people out there that own other brands, whether they be import or American. It could be a Mustang or Camaro, whatever it may be. You know what? The Scatpack in both the Charger and the Challenger are fantastic packages. So I just want to spread a little bit of knowledge about some of the things that I've learned on this car because it's a pretty unique machine. So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to the Scatpack is the fact that you can actually pick one of these up if you don't go crazy with the options on it for about the same price as a well-optioned RT. So if you're really performance-based, you're a performance enthusiast, that's all you care about, you don't care about all the bells and whistles, but you do want that bigger 6.4-liter naturally aspirated motor, I think these things can be had for like in the high 30s if you go and get a deal at your local dealership or you find somebody selling one with low miles that's even better. But essentially, like I said, for the same amount you can buy a well-optioned RT, you can buy a somewhat optioned out Scatpack and get the additional performance, and we're talking a pretty big performance bump from the RT when you jump over to this, and a lot of it is in the way it drives, so I want to tell you about that. So when we're talking about the Scatpack, you know, a lot of what this car is it's about the driving experience. So one of the big knocks, obviously, on Dodge as a whole, and the Scatpack is certainly no different, is that they are heavy cars. And you know what? There's truth to that. This car is legitimately 600 pounds heavier than the other cars it competes against, really in the Mustang and in the Camaro, and then really just about everything else. Yes, the car is heavier, it's bigger. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about the Charger or the Challenger, we're kind of talking both platforms there. You know, the car is big and you can feel it a little bit in the way that the car drives. But I will say this, the Scatpack has that 6.4-liter Hemi, and the thing puts out a lot of power. It's 485 horsepower, 475 pound-feet of torque, and when you are rolling around in this thing, and I drive it in track mode all the time, this thing is really enjoyable to drive. I'm just laying into it a little bit, and just the way that this thing pushes the car around, I continue to be impressed with it. And mind you, it doesn't drive the same as, obviously, as a V6. The SXT. It doesn't drive the same as an RT, even though they're both naturally aspirated V8s. The punch, the low-end punch of the 6.4 is significantly more than it is in the RT, and you can feel it by the seat of your pants. So when you're driving the car on the street, it is really fun to drive. And I'm somebody, a lot of you guys know, I have a Hellcat that makes 1,000 horsepower, but on initial tip-in, I'm not saying just go all out, but on initial tip-in, this car is a lot of fun to drive because it really gets after it. And the car does not feel heavy from a gas pedal perspective at all, in terms of just the way it moves this car out, and it is more substantial. And I've driven all the cars, guys, the Mustangs, the Camaros, and pretty much everything, the European sedans, all that kind of stuff. When you talk about something that's fun to drive on the street in terms of that initial low to mid-range tip-in, this thing has a lot of punch, and I love that. So there are some limitations and some issues that come with all of that sort of low-end punch and that torque. Obviously, this particular model, this is a 2019 Shaker, it came with 245 RSA 2s on the back of it, which to me, and I've said this many times, guys, just seems like a really stupid thing to do, because this thing will absolutely fry the tires at speed. I mean, the thing just fries the tires. And this thing should have come with the 305s that you typically see on the wide bodies. I mean, this car needs 305s on the back. The RT, I think you can get by with the 245s, but 305 should be standard on all Scat Packs and Hellcats, and it's just the way it should be. Dodge should not have put 245s on this car because it's almost borderline dangerous if you don't know how to handle the vehicle. How about a quick demonstration? Yep. Obviously, another thing to consider if you're like a Mustang or a Camaro guy, a lot of those cars come with a 10-speed automatic in them now. Obviously, this particular one, 8-speed, similar like what you get in a Hellcat, not quite as beefed up, but the 8-speed transmission in this is still really, really good, and it makes for a really enjoyable driving experience. And unlike the Hellcat, obviously this one you can get the 309 standard. I do believe that is an option on the Hellcat now, but it didn't used to be. But the 309 gears in this car really, really work well. I'm a big fan of the 309s in the Scat Pack. Certainly another item of note on the Scat Pack, and it pretty much goes with a lot of the Dodge stuff, is that, you know, for a pony car, muscle car, however you want to categorize it, these are, because they're bigger, they are really comfortable cars to ride in. I have to admit that whether it's the Scat Pack, the RT, the SXT, even a Hellcat, you know, if you're coming from another brand, you will find, and you know, not that there's anything wrong with a Mustang or a Camaro or an Audi or whatever it might be, but these cars are comfortable to ride in. They've got big plush seats, and they're just a really nice car to sit and enjoy a cruise in. And that's the great thing about these cars. They make so much power, but you can really enjoy long trips in these without an issue. Pretty cool place to sit. So a couple other things I want to talk to you about. Like I said, not everything is hunky-dory or positive. I will say that you know, if you like a really soft, supple ride, certainly the Scat Pack may not necessarily be for you. This particular one did not come with the dynamic or the adjustable suspension in it, so it's just one suspension setting, and it is a little bit stiff. It's not terrible. I certainly think it's okay, but you might be able to even see my camera shaking around just a little bit. I'm going pretty slow. When I drove the SXT trim, that was a really soft, supple ride compared to this thing. But then again, we're talking about a car with a lot more power. Couple other items of note. If you are looking for something with absolutely fantastic gas mileage, I wouldn't recommend the Scat Pack. Two reasons. Well, I mean, will it get good gas mileage? If you really, really try, yeah, I think you can get a pretty decent amount of gas mileage out of this car. I really do. I mean, if you're on the highway, you're just barely tipping into the throttle, you can actually get decent mileage. You can actually get decent mileage out of a Hellcat if you do that too. But I will say, I drive this thing in track mode because I enjoy it. I like that low end punch. I like the responsiveness of this big 6.4 liter natural aspirated Hemi. And at the end of the day, I didn't buy this thing for gas mileage. I bought it because of the punchiness and the fun, and it's something great for Mrs. X to drive and race, and it's just a great all-around package. And you know, if you're looking for some, I mean, it's just so hard to keep your foot out of it, guys, and that's the realistic thing there. If you're looking to baby the car, why get a Scat Pack in the first place? That's kind of how I look at it, guys. I mean, you don't have to run around like your hair's on fire all over the place. But at the end of the day, guys, if you're going to enjoy the car the way it's probably designed to be enjoyed, you're probably not going to get the best gas mileage. So definitely something to consider there. Also, I will say that from an insurance perspective, Scat Packs are really not the cheapest thing on insurance. It's just about as much as the Hellcat. It really is. When you compare them, even though the Hellcat makes way more horsepower, you see a pretty good jump from like the RT to the Scat Pack. I don't really see a huge jump, at least for me, from the Hellcat down to the Scat Pack. So something to consider there when it comes to insurance costs. You might pay a little bit more if you're jumping up from a 6-cylinder or an RT. Keep that in mind. Another quick item of note, when you talk about the exhaust note on the Scat Pack, even though when you compare it to the RT, even though obviously they're both naturally aspirated V8 cars, it is a little bit more of a robust sound that comes out of the back of this car than it does on the RT. Not to say the RT doesn't sound good, it is still a really nice, healthy V8 sound, but the Scatpack has just a little bit more snap to it, and it really does sound good even in stock form. Not that we're going to leave it that way, it's just because that's pretty much what I do. But at the end of the day, this thing has a little bit more of a robust sound than some of the other trim levels, obviously excluding the Hellcat and the Demon, that kind of stuff. All right, so the next thing, guys, oil changes. I do want to just bring it up pretty quick. Obviously, these things require a fair amount of oil. It requires OW40, at least that's what it calls for from Dodge. And if you go to your local dealership or a local place to get a fully synthetic oil change done on one of these cars, you have to fully expect to spend somewhere in the $90 to $100 range, unless you've got some sort of a crazy deal worked out with somebody. That's about what it costs. I actually just recently had the oil for this car changed over at my local dealership, actually where I did a video not too long ago, and that's what they charged, like $99.85 or something like that. So the oil changes on this car, guys, they're not cheap. Something else to consider, guys, when it comes to the 6.4, and you guys have probably heard me say this many times before, but they do come pretty optimized from the factory. Yes, they're very, very punchy. 485 horsepower out of a naturally aspirated factory car is pretty stout. Now, when you talk about modifying these, you will pick up some horsepower depending on what you've done. I've done lots of videos on modding this car, but the gains are incremental and relatively small compared to some of the competitors like a Mustang or a Camaro, and they're not cheap to do. So guys, if you're looking to go crazy with mods, perhaps the Scatpack is not the right package for you. Not to say you can't supercharge one or turbo it, put a cam in it, but keep in mind, even a cam, guys, on these Hemis, you have to open up the motor. It's not like an LS car where you can just slide the cam in, the heads have to come off. It's a pretty invasive situation when you go to cam one of these, and it is not inexpensive. So something to consider, guys. If you're gonna mod, just know what you're getting into when it comes to the 392. As I mentioned just a moment ago, yes, you can boost a 6.4 liter natural aspirated Hemi, guys, turn it into a boost car. But at the end of the day, if you want to keep it reliable, I would highly recommend that you keep your boost low on this. You got to be a little bit conservative when it comes to boost. These motors, they do not have forced internals like you'll see on, obviously, like the Hellcat, the Demon, and stuff like that are beefed up internals. This guy here, I mean, yes, it'll take some boost, more than about 7 pounds. It probably will not do it reliably for any length of time. That's at least my personal opinion on it, guys. Something to consider there as well. So a couple other things to talk about, guys, when you go to actually tune your car. So yes, if you do any sort of modifications, long tubes or whatever you want to do, like I said, you can put a supercharger, whatever you need to do. If you need to tune the car, Mopar PCMs do not come unlocked like some of the other manufacturers out there, which means that you're going to have to send off your PCM to be unlocked. You can either unlock your stock PCM, and I think from HP Tuners it's about $250 to just unlock the thing so it can be tuned. A lot of people do not realize that aren't Mopar people, but it's definitely something to consider there. And then of course you've got the cost of tuning as well, so it's not an inexpensive proposition to tune one of these cars. This is obviously my PCM out of my Hellcat. I actually bought a separate PCM for my car, and that was over $800. So you are getting into some cost when it comes to tuning on one of these things. That's another thing that you have to be aware of. Also, if you're coming from an RT or an SXT and you're used to putting either 87, 89, whatever, even 91 octane fuel, that's not going to work on your Scatpack, guys. You need to get good octane fuel. Typically, they recommend 93. I realize some places don't even have 93, but they recommend the highest octane that you can get. So if you're looking at putting inexpensive fuel in a car, the Scatpack, it's not going to work out. Also, guys, if you don't daily the car, I would recommend getting yourself a nice set of drag radials for the back of this. The car will feel more planted. It will feel like it just puts the power down much, much better, and it'll be a little bit more enjoyable driving experience. Obviously, you know, we all like slipping around a little bit sometimes in terms of just fanning the power. But at the end of the day, if you really want the car to be pretty fast on the street and reliably quick to where it's not spinning all the time, and you don't daily it where you're going to just tear the crap out of some drag radials, get a set of drag radials for the back of your Scatpack. You will actually be impressed with what a difference that tire change makes. Well, guys, so that's about it on my tips on the Scat Pack. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information in terms of the things I've learned about this car. At the end of the day, this is a very, very fun car to drive. I love driving this car. It is a blast. It makes a fantastic daily driver. Plenty of power. That mid-range torque is substantial. If you're looking for something that's got crazy top end, maybe you're better off with a Mustang, or maybe even a Camaro, something with a 10-speed in it. But if you're looking for something to tool around on the street, something that would just put a huge grin on your face for just running around town and having that low-end push that just really puts a huge smile on your face. I mean, the Scat Pack is a really, really fun car. It is not the most inexpensive car in the world to own or operate. Obviously, as we talked about with the gas mileage and all the different things that kind of go into the Scat Pack, there's a lot of different trims on these cars in terms of wide body. They've got a 1320 out there. They've got a TA. I mean, Dodge does a ton when it comes to trims on Scat Pack. So guys, I mean, you can trim these up pretty much any way you want, base all the way up to fully decked out into the mid 50s. But at the end of the day, the Scat Pack is a really, really fun car to drive and own. So we're really, really glad that we have it. So hopefully you guys enjoy the content. I really appreciate it. And until next time, Racer X.